Extending the invitation. I really appreciate being able to come and chat with you this morning. It's a really busy day. You know, they say if you want something done, ask a busy person. Well, if you want it done, ask a busy person on a busy day. Today is I'm going to be talking about a statute that needs to be changed, and the hearing, the first hearing on that will be this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and we're going to be testifying along with the Bell Policy Center and other organizations to try to make this change. But I absolutely positively had to squeeze this opportunity into my day today, because getting to chat with all of you about something this important is really what I do. It's what I get paid to do, and it's what I try to do as often as I can. I'm going to talk to you now about, I'm going to spend the first few minutes talking about the budget situation. And for those of you who know me or have seen me make a presentation in the past, I tend to be kind of an optimistic kind of gal. I'm definitely a half-full type. But you're not going to really get that from the first half of this presentation, because I'm going to give you a lot of facts and figures which are much more gloom and doom than half full. But I think it's important to set that as a context for the discussions about what are we going to do as a community to right this ship as we go forward. So bear with me for a little while when I talk about the bad stuff, and we'll get around to opportunities for improvements in just a minute. Last thing I want to say before I jump in is, in my bio it was mentioned that I was the primary author of a report called 10 Years of TABOR, and I had the privilege of being the primary author with my next nearest primary author sitting at the end of the table down here, Wade Buchanan. I had the privilege of doing that work when I worked for the Bell Policy Center, and so Wade and I spent many hours loving and hating each other as we put that report together. These are some numbers that show sort of where the state is on a big economic picture. And I give you these because it's important to sort of get the big picture of what's happening in the economy. And I'm going to summarize this boring chart by saying this. All these indicators are going in the wrong direction as an indicator of an economy that's thriving. We don't want to see unemployment, let's hold that one for a minute. We don't want to see unemployment going up. We'd rather see it going down, or at least remaining stable in a good economic times. Personal income, a drop of that size is a big indicator that there's something awful going on in our economy. Check out this one. This is actual wage and salary income. We're on a huge negative trajectory in the amount of money that people are earning. And when people don't earn money, they don't have any money to spend. And if they don't spend it, we lead to this kind of a number that shows retail trade sales going down, actually showing negative estimated for 2009. This is another really important number, and this is assessed valuation. You see that we were at 14. This is the value of our homes, basically. It includes businesses and other things too, but a lot of it is an indication of the value of our homes. We were rising. This was a pretty typical year for a long time. In 2007, we dropped to 2.8. We're leveled off at 4.5, or that's what the projection is going to be. But these are not numbers that indicate a good economy, if you will. This number is the one that you might arguably say is the best out there. The problem with this number is it's too low. And everyone is saying this number is going to be adjusted upward officially. In fact, it was adjusted upward officially by the Census Bureau yesterday. And this number is going to be adjusted up, I believe, as well. It's hard to dump the kind of money, almost $1 trillion, into the economy as we've just done with the stimulus package, without causing inflation. Not that it isn't, that may not be a bad thing. There's some real good reasons why we're doing the stimulus. I don't mean to imply that. But this number is one that we expect will change dramatically. These are the overall indicators of what's happening in the economy. When the economy struggles, we know that the revenue that's available for the public sector or state government to do the kinds of things, provide the kinds of services that protect families, stabilize schools, provide funding for higher education, we know those things are linked. When the economy struggles, revenue falls. And that's what you see in this chart. These are projections about what's going to be happening with the major sources of revenue available to state government. If you look at income tax, this is a big drop, you guys. 7.5% reduction from one year to the next in the amount of income taxes collected. It's a reflection of that first chart that I showed you. Income's going down, sales, income tax goes down as a result of it. But the thing that I think is most important about this is what this column looks like. We've become accustomed to sort of one-year recessionary cycles, sort of short troughs. But you can see that even in this out year, into 2010, we're not looking much better. This is not any growth. Remember the inflation rate I told you of 1.8%? This is below that. And we anticipate that, inflation is actually going to be higher than that. Yes?
That unemployment number, that seems awfully, like 2009, seems pretty low.
It's really low.
The national average is supposed to be 8 or 9. Are we going to do that much better than the national economy?
We will. We tend to. But most people are now projecting it's going to be at least 6.8, maybe 7%. But we will stay. Colorado does tend to stay below the national economy.
All these numbers in 2009 don't look that bad, quite frankly, compared to how the economy's going, the stock market's predicting.
Well, you're right. Separating the stock market and the economy for a minute. These are not great numbers. They're not as bad as some people might project, but I also suggest to you that, oh, it's my slide coming up, I think they're way too optimistic.
Right, I agree.
These are all projected numbers at this point. I'll steal a slide that I'm going to get to in a minute, but I went back and looked at where we were on these same indicators during the last recession in 2001, 2002. We haven't reached the same level of economic distress that we reached in 2001 and 2. And nobody that I've heard, read, or talked to believes that this recession is less severe than the last one. So that's part of my gloom and doom. I'm sort of giving you the bummer news. These are not good numbers. These do not show the kind of growth that we need to maintain even the new kids coming into our schools and the people who are going to be eligible for Medicaid. And I think, quite frankly, they're way too optimistic. I think that when we get to March, and there's a new estimate on March 20th, we're going to see dramatic reductions in these numbers.
And Carol, these are also not per unit sorts of costs. These take into account or net out population growth.
Right. Now these are just the measurement of total revenue that's coming into the state for income tax, sales taxes.
Who's providing these numbers? Where are you getting this data from?
This all comes from Legislative Council, which is the organization that does the official revenue estimating for the legislature as they set their budgets. They contract with somebody, an economic forecasting firm, they actually have the black box formula. Legislative Council sort of discusses with them what goes into it. But these are all Legislative Council numbers. Now, to Wade's point, we've designed a system so that when the economy is failing, we actually increase services, or we have services available for folks who don't have jobs, don't have health insurance, etc. So we've got a soft economy, we've got soft revenue, but we've got demand that's continuing to increase at a fairly substantial rate. People are still moving to Colorado. People are still having kids and putting them in schools. People are still going to prison. And we see that, again, this number is already at 6.8. Again, a relatively soft number going out. So the point being, we have more demand for services. We have less money to actually provide those services. Here's the slide I was just talking about. I think the projections are way too rosy. Now, what happened the last time we saw this sort of coming together? Recession is what it boils down to. It happens every time we have a recession. We saw huge cuts in higher education. Anybody have any idea why why we're so apt to cut higher education during a recession?
It's the only place we can cut.
It's an easy place to do it.
It's an easy place to do it. And why is it an easy place to do it?
It's discretionary.
Because it's discretionary. And there's another source of income. It's called tuition. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but a lot of people would a heck of a lot rather shove that off on tuition costs. Change the structure, change the balance between individuals and the community or a collective.